All right. Uh, Good afternoon. Welcome to today's class. And today is going to be an interesting class. This class is going to be a very interesting class because we are going to see something we used, but we didn't really understand how it worked. So look at JavaScript promises, and we are also going to look in depth at how Express middleware works. Right. So what are promises? We'll cover what are promises in JavaScript, how to write a simple promise that you can use, how to call and use promises, right? And then we're also going to look at Express middlewares. So we've used middlewares already to process the request body of a user. We've used Express middleware to also do authentication, but we didn't really look into how Express middlewares work. So this class is that class where we dive in depth and see how everything works. So let's get right into it. So these are the topics we are going to look at today. Sorry for the typo there. It's what are JavaScript promises, how to write a promise in JavaScript, what are middlewares in Express.js, why are they important, application level middlewares, right? And then we'll see route level middlewares because there are different kinds of middlewares, okay? Now, let's go over to VS Code and let's already start. So in real life, right? When someone tells you that they make a promise to you, right? You you won't just like sit there and wait till the person fulfills his promise. You'll still go on with your normal daily activity. Imagine I tell you I want to buy you iPhone next month, and then you just pause everything in your life, and even to eat, you don't eat. You wait till next month till you see the iPhone before you start eating. That wouldn't be ideal, right? So that's the reason for promises. Promises help you uh first start a task, right? But that task doesn't block out every other thing that is happening. So let's see how to write a promise. Now, promises are used for a lot of things in JavaScript. Like for example, when you're making a request to a server, right? You're actually calling a promise somewhere that promise should execute and fetch something from a server and then get it back to you, and then you try and resolve whatever reaches you on your end, right? But resolving that thing doesn't stop any other thing from happening, right? It doesn't stop you from clicking another button and the rest. So promises are non-blocking, right? Now let's see how we can write a simple promise. Okay. Okay, so someone said I should zoom into my screen. Let me do that. So this is big enough. So let me create a new file and let's see how we can write a simple promise. I hope this is at the root. A new file, I'll just call this try promise.js. So what do we want to name our promise? I'll just say const. A promise in JavaScript is just an a function, right? That can either resolve to your result or can be rejected. It's that simple. So I could say const do something here, and I'll say equals to new promise. And then this new promise accepts a function. So that function can be written inside here, right? So what does that function do? So that function accepts two parameters, accepts a reject and a resolve parameter. So the reject parameter, let me start with the resolve parameter. The resolve parameter is going to be called if that promise is executed successfully, while the reject is going to be called if the promise doesn't execute properly. So you can pass an arrow function there Then I'll say resolve reject. So I could either resolve to something or I could reject. Now you would want to do, sorry, something. You would want to do something in here that either resolves or rejects. So let's say I want to write, maybe I want to return hello world, right? Or something. I could say return resolve, return resolve, and then we could say hello world, right? So now this is a promise we've written, right? Most times you're not going to interact with promises directly this way, right? It would have been written somewhere already. It's just for you to call it and use, right? But this is me trying to write our promise and also try to use it at the same time. Okay, so how do we use how do you want to use this particular promise now? But this promise now just resolves, it doesn't reject, right? It just resolves to something. So now, how do we even use this promise? There are different ways of using a promise, right? There's using denable functions, there's using async await. So let's use denable functions. So I'm sure you must have seen this in yeah, here when we use mongoose. So mongoose returns a promise, right? Mongoose.connect returns a promise. So then is executed if that promise is resolved. Then catch is executed when that promise fails. So let's see. Let's come back here. Now I'll say do something. So coincidentally, there's also a student here. Her name is Promise. Okay, she's not on the call. Okay, so I'll say do something, and I'll just call it like that. I'll say do something, and then I'll say dots. So we're supposed to be a dot 10. Let me see, do something. This is a promise. Dot 10. Okay. I wasn't supposed to call it, sorry. Dot 10. Sorry about that. Then let me just leave it at dot 10. Now, this dot then, in fact, any chain of dot then, no matter how many chains you want to use the dot then, right? This is only going to be executed if the promise resolves, which means the promise went through successfully. Which means like it returned what it was supposed to return. So when if you're writing a promise, the promise should only resolve if what you're trying to do is correct. Okay. So then let's look at this. So we have dot then. Now this then is going to accept a function. The function is going to hold the value for what this promise is returning. So let me just say, let me call the arrow function. I could say val value. Then here I could say console.log value is val. So if I run that, if I say node try promise.js, what do you guys see? You guys see hello world, right? What if I set a timeout? I want to set timeout. Let's say this should resolve in 5 seconds. So after 5 seconds, it should resolve. So if you look at it now, we have set timeout, resolve 5 seconds. So let's see, let's call it. So now, while this has not resolved yet, right? The value of do something, or the value of this function, or the value of the promise would be pending, right? But it's not being shown here. If I just say console.log do something. Let me just say do something. Let me see what it's going to print. Okay, so you guys see, promise is pending, and then after this, let me still try to print do something after when it has printed what it was supposed to print. Okay, do something is still pending. Okay, so I think I should just put that inside there. Okay, so the promise doesn't actually, it's not going to show, or it doesn't show hello world, right? Sorry, it doesn't show result. Rather, it just shows hello world, which is the result of that promise. Does anybody have any question on what I've just done? Is there any question? Okay, so since there's no question, right? So what is the takeaway in this, right? Is that you can write a promise and then you can either resolve or reject a promise based on something that happened around the promise. So now, what if this promise rejected? What if this promise didn't go through, right? If I said REGECT instead of resolve, right? After 5 minutes, it should reject. Let me run this promise again. It's pending, it's pending. At the end of the day, we would have something, we'll have an unhandled rejection. Okay. And then the reason for that rejection is hello world. Now, anytime that you reject a promise, you have to pass the reason why that promise was rejected. Okay, if that promise was rejected, you always definitely have to pass the reason that promise was rejected. Okay, so that's what is happening here. Since we rejected a promise, but we've not handled that rejection, that's why it's showing this error on handled rejection. So if a promise, right, if the value or the what a promise returns is a reject function, what do we do? This is what we can do. To handle that, we say dot catch. And then catch is also going to accept a function, and that function would be the reason why that's actually rejected. Some people just call this error because, of course, catch is going to catch the reason for the error. So this can also be called error or ERR, anyone. So we can say console.log error. I could just say error, then colon, then ERROR. So what is this going to do? This is saying that we are trying to do something. After doing something, we want to, if the promise, right? If that promise returns a result, right? So which means that what we are trying to do is returning what is right. So the dot then is going to be called. But what if what we are doing is not what is expected? That's when catch is going to be executed. So let me execute this code and let's see what is going to happen. Node try promise. Let's see. What we are going to see here is an error. And the reason for the error is hello world. So can we see that? So which means now this line of code here is used to handle any error that occurs while trying to resolve this, right? Sorry, this catch is going to resolve any error that occurs in the promise, but not really an error if the promise is rejected, right? So if a promise is rejected, that is going to come as an error or as a rejection, and a rejection is always going to be caught by this statement. So anytime that there is a reject, right, you always need to have this catch statement to catch that error. Does it make sense to you guys? Does it make sense? Or do I need to go over it again?
Yes, sir. Yes, and I want to ask, what's the
Okay.
syntax rule for it, and can it be used for numbers?
If there is a syntax, what?
The syntax rule for it,
The
and
syntax
can
rule.
it be used for? Yes.
I don't get your question though.
Okay. What's the rule governing this code? Where is it applicable? And can it be used for numbers?
Okay. Where you can apply this. So let's take, for example, you have a task that you want to run, but then you don't want that task to block every other thing that's happening on your back end, or if it's your front end, you don't want that task to block whatever is happening on your front end. So what you can do is you can write a promise, right? And then run that task inside that promise. So now that task running inside that promise, whenever it rejects or accepts, the body of code that's supposed to handle that rejection or that acceptance is going to run. Not, it won't block out whatever is happening. So and also you can use, okay, for example, if you want to use this with numbers, you mean something like maybe checking if a number is even or odd, right? So we are going to come to that. But first, let's see. If I wrote hello here, hello guys, let's run this code. Did you notice? Hello guys is printed first, right? It didn't even say, okay, let's take it step by step. Let's run this one first. Let's wait till this one runs before we now print the hello guys, right? It ran. Okay, so what is happening here? This is a promise, and this promise is pending. So at this point, this promise is pending. JavaScript just says, let's move to something else while this promise is pending. So it's executed the hello guys, which is down there. And then after executing the hello guys, right? If there was any other thing to execute under here, to execute it. Now, while trying to execute any other thing, right? If this promise either rejects or accepts, it will just run that code to maybe do what you want that promise to do. Okay. And then that goes on. Now you can control it. You can control this. If I want it that this code should this hello guy should run only the uh if the promise is resolved, right? Then that will mean me moving this line of code into this then, right? But if I want it to run only if the code rejects, then I can move it into this catch. So look at this. If I move this into catch and then I run the code again, you're going to see it doesn't print out hello guys again. It prints out only, okay, after printing out, okay. So this is because this is rejecting. Let me turn this to resolve and then let me print it out. So pending, pending, pending. At the end of the day, yes, it resolves and then we see hello guys here. Cool. Now, running this code this way, right, is cool, is fine, is okay, but it means if you have 3 promises and you want those 3 promises to run step by step, so it runs the first promise before it runs the second promise before it runs the third promise, then that means you're going to have to write this, right? You're going to need to have a promise. Then inside your denable function, you write another promise inside. Then inside your denable function, you write another promise inside. Let's do it. So I want to be practical here, right? Okay, wait. Okay, I'll come back to your question, right? I'll write a function that prints that rejects if you have an even number, if you pass an even number to a promise, or I'm sorry, it will resolve if you pass an even number to a promise, and it will reject if you pass an odd number to a promise. I'll do that. But for now, let's do this. Let me do something 2, right? And then let me just leave it like that. Let me just say hello 2. Now, look at this. I wanted that if this do something resolves, right? That it should then start running do something 2. So if I want to do that, this is what I'll now come and do. Inside this do something then function, I'll now come here and now write do something to dot then dot catch. Then inside here I could just say v should be console.log v, right? And then err should be console.log err. All right, so let's run this code and see what it's going to do. It would first print out, hello guys. Okay, then it brings out hello world too. Okay, it didn't wait for 5 seconds to do that. That's because the two promises, right, started out almost at, in fact, they started at almost the same time. So let me increase this to 10. That's 1 minute. So it should print out hello world. Then after another 5 minutes, it should print out hello world. Yes. So we've been able to do that, but this is a problem. Okay. Now, even if you write this outside, it's going to run well. Let's see. Let's write it outside. Let's see. So after 5 minutes, you have hello world. After another 5 minutes, you have hello world 2. So let me see what I can do to let me move this promise in here so that it only starts executing when we call it. Let me see. Okay, wait. Let me change this back to 5. Let me see how that will play out. Okay, cool. So I have exactly the value I'm looking for here. Hello world, and then okay, this is what I was trying to simulate. Now, this is cool, but I don't want this to happen, right? I don't want to be maybe writing then inside then, right? So, but there's another way of us doing the same thing, okay? So, but for now, I'll write the way we can do it the other way using async await, right? I'll write it, but then let me write what I was asked. So let's check if a number is even. So is number even will be equals to a function that accepts a number. And then in here we'll say, so is number even? So we'll then say return new promise, right? And then this promise will accept a resolve, a reject, and of course, we'll then say if the number modulus 2 is equals to 0, then we should resolve to maybe yes, it's even. Yes, it's even. Then else, so which means it's odd, right? So I'll then say reject. Then I'll say no, it's not even. Beautiful. We've done this. So let's run it. How do we run it? We'll then say is number even dot no, is number even dot then. So dot then is going to be executed if the number is even, but I've not passed the number here yet. So I'll pass it. So I'll say val. In fact, let me take this to the next line. I'll say console.log I'd say the results. VAL. Then here I'll say dot catch. And of course, there's also dot finally. So I'll explain why. In fact, I'll explain why there's dot finally also. ERR. So now look, whenever you're having just one argument, like here, we're having one argument to our arrow function, right? Since it is just one argument we have, we can decide to skip that bracket. But if we have more than one argument, like 2 arguments, 3 arguments, or if you're writing TypeScript and you want to give this a type, then you have to put those brackets. But since I just have one argument, so no need, I just pass that one argument like that without any brackets. So I'll say console.log. So I'll say there is a problem. Then I'll say ERR here. Now, let me pass in a number. So I'll say 20 and I'll run that code. Yes, it's even, of course. So that's the result. But if I pass a number like 19, well, yeah, there's a problem. No, it's not even. So we see that we can write a function that returns a promise, and that promise results. So now this can be okay. So let me give an example of where we actually use promise. When for you guys that have written Axios, right? So you'd say const response should be equals to Axios. Yeah, Axios dot get. I'm just using this for an example, right? Okay, let me just remove this part. Then you say Axios dot get, then you now say dot then and all the stuff, right? You're actually using a promise here. The Axios is actually going to return a promise to you, right? So inside the hood, inside Axios hood, there's a place that they've written something similar to this, maybe const Axios, okay, sorry, const Axios dot get. Okay, that would definitely be a class, not a function, not a plain function like this. It would be a class. Then you instantiate that class. So maybe it would be something like class Axios. Let me just say class Axios that way. And then somewhere you'd say, maybe somewhere it's already instantiated const Axios is equals to new Axios. Then you then say, so if Axios has a method called get, so you now say Axios dot get, and then of course this get is going to accept your URL and all those stuff. Your URL, maybe URL, your what else? Headers. So if you try to come here, you see that you have URL, you have headers and all those stuff like that. Something similar to this might not really be exactly what I've written here, right? So that's how you use your Axios, right? Now, so who asked that question? Is it Sophia or Magdalene? Who asked the question of these even numbers to if you can pass a number to it or pass values to a promise? Sophia, are you the one that asked?
No, it's Magdalene.
Oh, okay, Magdalene. Have I answered your question? Hello, Magdalene. Are you there? Okay, I guess she's not there. So let's continue. Now, we've written this out, right? How can we use this without how can we use uh how can we use promises without using this enable and catch function. Okay, sorry, I skipped something which is dot finally. Now, dot finally is used when you want to do something, whether a promise is accepted or not. So I could do something like this. Maybe at the end of the day, I want to just console.log done. So if I execute this code, let me clear my terminal. If I execute this code, right? You see, there's a problem. It's not even, but at the end of the day, done is being executed. If I change this to 20, right, and I execute this code, you still see the results. Yes, it's even, and then you see done again. So finally is always going to execute whether or not. So if where is this applied, right? On your front end, right? When maybe you've made a button to maybe show something like loading, maybe that loading spinner, right? And let's say when they click on that button, maybe there's a request that's made to an API, for example. On a normal, whether that request to that API is fulfilled or is rejected, you want to remove or you want to convert that the value of that button back to what it was before. It shouldn't just be showing loading and be turning like that forever and ever, right? So you can use a finally to say, okay, whether that's that request, right, that turn that button to show loading, or if maybe you have a loading page, right? Maybe a loading screen, right? You want that loading screen to disappear, whether or not the request that is made was resolved or was rejected. So you can use a finally there. Okay. Then another thing that I would want to also talk about is that you can have multiple .then functions. You can have this .then and you can have another .then. But now, why would you want to do that? Now, what happens is if you have two .thens, right? The first .then has to return something so that the second .then can have it. This is what I mean. So I have console.log val here. I can say return val. I could say return val plus maybe yay. So yay, right? I'm not printing it out. I'm not printing that value out. I'm just returning it and just adding yay to it. Maybe space before the yay. What I can do here is I can say .then again, right? And then .then I could say v. So now the value of this v here, right, in this second .then is actually the result of the return to log here. And I say v value, right? That return value, this is almost like middleware in your express. So when you have .then here and that .then return something. If there's another .then, right, that's have a third .then. So let's see. Let me print that out and let's see what it will show. You see, yes, it's even. Yay. This is printing from here, and this is because this first .then return something. Imagine this first .then did not return anything. Just left it like that. So what is going to happen? Undefined. Undefined because this first .then is not returning anything. So the second .then cannot get anything. So you can write return there. So if you don't want to write this return, right, what you can do is you can remove this bracket, remove the other bracket, and put everything on one line. So doing this, let me clear out my terminal and let me run that again. You see? Yes, it's even. Yay. So this plus the yay. So now when you write an arrow function this way, what effectively happens is, since there is no curly braces here and ending here, right? Whatever you write here is going to be automatically returned. So whether there's curly brace, if as far as there's no curly braces, or sometimes you might see something like this, right? This just means return whatever is there. Don't don't just worry about what is there, just return it. Okay. Does anybody have any other question? Okay, so there's no other question. Let's move on, right? So we've talked about this denable functions very well, right? So let's see how we can use it with async await. Look at this. How can we use async await with this function now? So instead of using denable function, let's try to use async await. Now, async await will require that I write a function. So I could say that's when I would mark a function as async. So I could say async function do something. Okay, sorry. What should I give? What name should I give this function? Maybe I'd say uh executes promise. The execute promise is going to be equals to is number even. So now what I can do is I can say const the result of the promise should be equals to await is number even. Then I can then pass 20. Right. Oh, what am I doing? Okay, so I can write my function that way. And I need to call that function, of course. Remember, it's a function, it needs to be called. Oh, await. What is it saying? Okay, it's saying await is only valid for functions at top level of the module. Okay. I don't remember how this is being called. So let's see. I think it's exec. No. Um. Wow. I can't remember that clearly. Okay. So what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? I understand what's happening. So execute promise isn't actually executing because what I wrote here is expecting a promise, but I'm supposed to wrap this around a function, but I can't remember the name of that function at this time. Okay, so let's see how we can resolve this together. Let's see. Oh, okay. Guys, just give me some few minutes. Give me some few minutes. I'll resolve this. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I've been looking at my code. Console.log results. Can you imagine? Are you guys there? Are you guys following me? Hello?
Yes, sir. We are.
Okay, so apparently I didn't remember to print what I did. So that's why it wasn't working. Right. I'm so sorry about that. So we have a result here. So we can do whatever I want to do. We can change this to maybe 19. Of course, if we change this to 19, it is going to give an error. So it is an unhandled rejection here, right? That, oh, okay, this error originated by throwing inside of an async function without a catch block. Okay, so yes. Now, why is this happening? Remember that here we said then we can have catch, right? But and we have finally. Now, when you're using async await, right? We also have this similar structure somehow. Now, this is how you write it. You say try, then you say catch. And then this catch has accepts an error. Just the same way we have catch here. So everything that you want to do inside your enable function, you do inside the try here. So all these things I want to do here, I'll then carry it to try. See? Try. Then any error that occurs, I want to treat that error in catch. So I'll just copy whatever I wrote here and then paste it there, say OR. So effectively, let me clear my console. Let me come back here. So effectively, right? Whatever I do here, I can decide to run like five different promises. And of course, now since it's a promise, right? We are going to always use await. Now, this is the thing. Why am I using await here? Why am I using async? Now, any any function you mark as an async promise is telling the user, right, of that promise that see, sorry, it's going to tell the user that that function you're trying to use is going to return a promise. Okay, it's going to return a promise, whether the promise is void or whatever. But it's okay. Yeah, the promise is void because we are not actually returning anything here. But this particular function is going to have a promise in it and it's going to return a promise, even if that promise is void, but it's going to return an empty promise, right? That's why you have this async here. Now, any promise you're going to use inside this function is going to use await, which is what you're seeing here. So if I remove this await, right, this function is not going to execute properly. Now, what does this await do? This await is saying, please, can we all wait till its even number is being executed and it returns, it either resolves or rejects before we can continue here? Do you understand? So this await here is saying, okay, let's wait. Please, just be patient. Just wait till its even number is executed, right? And it returns either a resolve or a reject. Then when it, it returns a resolve or a reject, right? And then if it returns a resolve, we print out the result. If it rejects, then we show the reason why it was rejected. So if we run this code now, you see, no, it's not even as a problem here, right? But then if this is even, of course, it is going to work well. Then we can also have the finally block here. So finally block, I could just say console.log done. So this finally block here is just saying whether you resolved, whether the promise was resolved well or the promise was rejected, it doesn't concern me. I'm going to run after when whatever has happened. Now look at this. This is more ideal to use, right? Why? Now look at this. Let me remove the comment on this do something. So I could just say, I can just say console.log do something, await do something. Bagan, yes, this is even, and then it's waiting for do something, then done. We have hello world there, which is the result of do something. So this makes it easy for us to use our promises easily, right? So now JavaScript, right? In fact, Express, when you're using Express, you will always use promises. You will always use promises. In fact, let's come here. Let's look at what we're doing. See, to create a product, right? You have to await to send the promise to create that product. And then what happens is this. When this request is sent to create the product, you have to wait till the product is being created. That's why you have this await here, right? So you have to wait till the product is created. That's because I want to get the value of that new product. I have to wait till that product is being created and is being sent back before I can then do res.send new product. If I remove this await here, right? When once it just executes this create, it won't even wait for anything to come back. It will just try and send this new product. And of course, this new product would be undefined or empty. So this await is important, right? If I wanted to just create the product and then just send me maybe products created, right? I didn't want to wait till the product is created successfully. I'll just maybe remove the await and just see products.create. But I think that might even cause an error. So the point is that every time you're going to use a promise, right? You have to wait for that. You have to wait for that promise to execute. Whether you're using it, whether you want to use the promise, the result of the promise or not, just wait for that promise to be created. And also, secondly, when you are writing something like this, don't come and write. For example, you write result is equals to await is even number, then you now come and write dots. Then, if I am around you, I will throw you stone. I'll aim you stone. Why would you have results and you are waiting for that result and you now have dot then again and probably dot catch? See, I give you the license to jail anybody that does this. Anybody you see that writes such code like this. I've seen this. I have seen this in real life, right? Like someone wrote await then a promise and then after that I now saw dot then and I'm like, wow. Maybe I should print the person's picture and just say maybe go to the police station and file a case. Okay, so this is it for promises, right? This is the basic of promise. There are other things to know, right? When to, but for now, right? We won't treat them, but this is just an intro to promise. How promises are used. You can use tenable functions. You can use async await to read promises. So, is there any question? Does anybody have any question they want to ask? No question. So in practical, everybody understands what I've taught.
No,
Everybody
sir,
understands.
we are taking our time.
Okay, take your time, take your time. Okay, so we've done this. You can always go back to the video to watch it again to understand how everything is working, right? So that's promise for you. Now let's go to, wow, I've written 61 lines of code just now. Wow. So let's move on to middlewares. Let me explain middlewares, what middlewares are. So we've done that. Now let's come here, right? Let's see. Now, what is a middleware? Let's start from what is a middleware. But let me come here to show you an illustration. You have a request, right? You have a request coming in from a client. So you have client's request. You have a client's request. It's coming into Express. It's coming to Express. Right? This client's request is coming into Express, your Express backend, your Express API. Now, that request from your Express API is going to go to a middleware, if any. If there is any middleware, it's going to go to that middleware. Then after that middleware, it can then land at the controller. So if you understand this diagram very well, then Express won't be too hard for you. When a client sends, when I say client here, it could be a mobile app, it could be a website, it could be Postman, it could be you using this test.rest to send a request, right? When you send a request, that request lands in Express, right? Express is first going to find out, oh, which route is supposed to handle this middleware. So, sorry, this request. So if that route has a middleware, it will pass that request through the middleware for that route, if there is any middleware for that route. If there is no middleware for that route, of course, Express is just going to send it to the controller for that route. The controller will do what it's supposed to do and send back a response. But if there is a middleware, if Express will send your request to that middleware, the middleware is going to do anything it wants to do and then send that request, right? Send the processed request, right, to a controller. Now, what is the difference between a middleware and a controller? Now, a middleware, right, has three functions that it uses. Okay, so a middleware accepts a request, a response, and a next. So let me do this with an example. So look at this. We come here. Let me create a middleware that should do something here. The middleware is going to print out two things on the console, right? So I'll do this. I'll say, now, first, before we even start writing middlewares, there are two kinds of middleware. There are two types. In fact, there are actually three, but we'll focus on two for now. That's in Express. Now, Express has what is called application level middleware, and it also has what is called route level middleware. So now look at this. An application middleware is a middleware that uses the app.use. So if you look here, we have app.use, JSON, app.use. So anywhere you see app.use, just know. In fact, if I okay, they didn't say it's actually a middleware here, but anywhere you see app.use, just know that is a middleware that you're going to use now, right? Now, what makes the function you pass to use a middleware is if that function is going to call the next handler. So in essence, this here, what you are seeing app.use, you're creating a middleware here, right? But the middleware is going to still call this auth route, right? Let's see. Let's create a middleware. Now, let's say app.use, and I'll just call this okay. Now, middlewares, right? When you use app.use, it's always going to accept a function. And remember, I said the function is going to accept a request, a response, and a next. Okay? No, you don't call the next. What did I do? Okay, so look at this. Let's say request response next. Now look at this. Whatever I do in here, when a request comes into this route, right? This route has to run, right? And then after this route runs, the route must call the next, right? It must call this next for that request to proceed to the next middleware, because this is a middleware. Now, in this express.json or express.url encoded, there is a place that next is being called. Let me check their code. Next handle function somewhere. Let's not go through their code, but let's do this. Let's write our own middleware. I'll just say console.log test middleware executed. Now, this middleware has access to everything that has to do with our request. And I'm going to show you something. I'm going to call the next. Then I'm also going to write another middleware here again. I'll say app.use. Then I'll say function. I want to write two middlewares. I'll say req res next. Then here I'll say console.log second middleware executed. Then I'll call next. Now, mind you, remember that these middlewares have access to everything that has to do with the request, everything that has to do with the response. This middleware can be used to modify the request. This middleware can be used to modify the response before it even reached the controller. Are you guys following? Or is there anybody that's confused right now? Now, the only way that this middleware is going to call, for example, for this middleware now, after executing first middleware executed, the only way that request that has been passed through this middleware is going to meet this second middleware is if next is being called. Now, if this next is not being called, when that request reach this middleware, it will stop here. Except if I decide to send a response back here, right? So this is what people do when their service is under maintenance and they don't want any requests to be executed by their service. Instead of calling next here, they can just come here and say res.send. They say service is under maintenance. So now, effectively, whatever execution or whatever request you're making is going to always reach, because this is an application level middleware, is going to reach this middleware. And once you reach this middleware, the middleware is going to tell it service is under maintenance, and that ends it. It won't go further. But if I then want to stop it, I'll just come here and say next. So let's see what we've done so far. npm run dev. We started that. Let me make a request to products. So where is it? I want to get my products. So yep, I get all my products, but let's look here. Let's look at the terminal. What do we see? We see first middleware executed, we see second middleware executed. So we have this request handler out. Let me remove this middleware because I'm not actually going to use it. Let me remove that middleware that's printing out all those things. So let's come back here. Let me make that request one more time. So let's come back here. Let me make that request. What do we see here? First middleware executed, second middleware executed. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, that is what we've written here. First middleware executed. Then we call next. Then, now, let me not call next. Let me not call next. Let me run this code. First middleware executed. Since there's no response, your request will be hanging because there's nothing to actually, you didn't tell us, you didn't send the request to us, you didn't send us to the next route. So this middleware is acting more like the Pharisees. It's not allowing us to go to the next middleware. It's not also sending us a response back that this is why I'm not allowing you to go. Okay. But of course, if we turn this down, okay, that request is cancelled. If we say service is under maintenance, let's come here. Yeah, service is under maintenance. Even if I try to post service is under maintenance, anything I do, service is under maintenance, right? That's because I've blocked out everything that has to do with that application, right? I've blocked it out using this middleware. So service is under maintenance no matter what you do. Okay, so now I've shown you how this is, right? I can decide to see your request. I can decide to log out your request body here if there's any request body. So this is an application level middleware. And this application now, this middlewares, don't go and put them under. Let's look at this. Let me remove this and put it under here. Let me put it under. That's after when this product route is being executed. You see that these two will not be reached. Let me call the get. Where is it? Call it. Our list of products is returned, but there's nothing going on here, right? That's because the controller, right? The controller for that product has been reached and it has executed and it has returned a response. So this middleware is not going to be called again. So the way you order your code matters. Make sure that if you're adding an application level middleware, that application level middleware should be above the route to your controllers. I hope that is clear. Okay, then finally, we should go to how to apply a request to a specific route. Okay, so let's look at this. Now, if I want to add a specific middleware or a middleware to a specific route, right? I will write the middleware first before I then add it. So I can do this. If I want to add the middleware to the auth route, this is what I'll do. I'll say function, then I'd say req, res, next. Of course, I would say, okay, let me add it to the product route instead. So I'd say, okay, I should give it a name. I'd say product middleware. Product middleware, and the product middleware, I could do something like this. I could say console.log products product middleware is being executed. So if I add it here, now adding it here, I don't need to put curly braces. It will automatically understand what I'm trying to do. Then I call the next. Now, this right here is a route level middleware. It's not an application level middleware, right? Because this function, right, for this middleware is applied only to product route. So which means auth route is going to work as it's supposed to work. But then this product middleware is going to only work that's after this sorry, this product route is going to work after the request has been passed through this middleware. So let's see. If I send that request now, what do we see? Product middleware is being executed. Now, also, if you don't want to write the product middleware here, which is like here, we can remove it. So let me cut it out of here. Now notice that I didn't call it. When once this route is being called, this will be automatically executed. So you don't need to call it. So if you don't want to write it here, you want to write it in product route, let's go back to product route. Now look here in the product route. If you want to add it to when you're getting a product, for example, that's only when you're getting products that you should apply that middleware. This is what we can do. I can paste the middleware here, and then I can also apply it like this. Now, look at what is happening. We have an application level middleware here. That's this application level middleware is just for only products, just for all. So this first to check if you're logged in is going to affect all the routes that are under it, all the routes that are under it. While this product middleware here is only going to affect this route. Okay, this is going to affect only this route. Now, of course, if I want this check if logged in to affect only this route, it shouldn't affect this one, right? I can just cut it and paste it down here. So this route is no more affected by this middleware. It's only all the middlewares that are under this route, which is this one now, that is being affected by this middleware. But let me take it back. So now you see, we have this middle. You can have multiple middlewares. I can have this product middleware. I can add another middleware here. I can add another one. I can add as much middlewares as I want to add. Okay, it doesn't matter. You can add as much as you want to add based on what is needed or what is required. So we have products and then we have products middleware. Let's see, let me make a request to products again. You see, products middleware is being executed. Of course, this also works the same way I mentioned before. If you don't call the next middleware, right? After products middleware is being executed, it is not going to allow this controller here to run or to execute. So it's because you're calling next here. So that next automatically calls the next middleware, which is this one here. Is it clear to everybody? Does anybody have any question they want to ask based on what I've said so far? Any question?
So I want to ask, can a live example be used? I think it will make us understand better. Let's say you want to build an app, a walkie-talkie app or an app for books, and you want to build the back end parts. I think that way we'll understand better if it's possible.
Okay, so should we do that on this call? Okay, let's do it this way, right? I'll build a full-fledged app, a full-fledged API in our next class API and see how it works, how everything works, right? About where this middleware will come in handy or where middlewares will come in handy. Apart from to check if a user is logged in, you know, if we open you every list of products, whether it's their product or in contact or restrict users to delete only products that is their own. You understand? If the product is not their own, then you can stop them from deleting that product. So there can be a middleware for that. In fact, I think I can just write that middleware here. So I could say delete, or let's say check before delete. Of course, remember that this first middleware, right here, this first middleware, which is called check if log it in, as it adds the user details to us, and the user details contains the user ID, the user email, and the full name. If you check here on the authentication route, let's check. When once want to sign our JWT, okay, we add the user ID and the email to the JWT, right? So when we are trying to access products, this user details here, which is the result of verifying the JWT, which should contain the user ID and the email, then we call the next route. So if we want to delete a product, we would say if we can check that product here by saying console dot, okay, we would say cons product should be equals to await product collection or product model. And of course, you can mark your middleware as async. So product model. So await product model, sorry, dot find by ID. Then you say find where the ID is req.params.id. Okay. So want to find, before you even do it, want to find by ID, then want to check if req.userdetails.user ID is equals to product.user ID. So I'm trying to show something. Product. So product dot is supposed to give me recommendations. So let me check my product model again to know what I did. Okay, so okay, the name is product owner, sorry. So I'll say where product dot user ID is equals to product owner. And please, most times convert this to string. Dot to string. Why? Because the user ID coming from front end is going to be a string. In fact, also convert this one to be safe. So let's say, so what we are checking here is if your ID and the ID of the product owner is the same, it means that you that is trying to delete the products are the owner of that product. So we can send it to next. Okay, but else here means if your ID and the ID of the product owner doesn't match, then you can't delete that product because res.401.search. You can not delete this because you are not the owner. of the product. So now are you guys following me? Are you guys following what is happening? Who is not following? Okay.
Ask a question.
Okay, ask.
So I want to get clarification. This middleware inside the product route is not an app level middleware, except the ones on the main index or app.js file.
You say?
I said the middleware now inside this product route is not an app level middleware now.
Okay. Yes.
Application
Okay.
level. You said there are two types of middleware.
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to say. This one is not an app level middleware because it only restricts the routes inside this folder, not the route for the whole application. Yes, you're correct. So let's move on. Can we move on? Can we move on?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so now what I want to do is I'll then say product router dot delete and we'll say / ID. I think that's what I wrote here. Products.params.id. Okay, correct. So I'll just say now I'll apply the middleware here, then I'll then say found async. Let me just use arrow function. So I'll say req res. Then here I'll just say here that so now I don't need to check again if you're the owner. So if you pass here, then it means you're the owner. If you've not passed here, then it means you're not the owner. So I'll just say await product model dot delete. Oh, did I say delete? Find by ID and delete. And then so I'll say find by ID and delete, and I'll say req.params.id. Then after that, I'll just res.send. Then I'll say message should be products. Product has been deleted successfully. Right. So doing this now, let's try this delete. But let's try this delete with a product that is not ours. So let's check here. Where is it? Index. We have / products. In fact, let me just come here. So I'll just paste it and I'll say delete. Then I'll say /product/ the ID of a product that I'm not the owner. So let me first get all the list of products, then I'll see which one is not my own. So I only have bicycle as a product. So let me check the database to see the list of all products. So let me see here. We have okay, KC class. So I'll go to my MongoDB. Mongo Compass. Let me check the product. I think I'll just reshare my screen. So we know that bicycle is our own product. I'm the owner of bicycle, right? Let me share my screen again to show you. Okay, so we're in MongoDB Compass. Let me connect. Products. Okay, KC class, right? We have products, we have bicycle. Of course, private jet is not my product, but it's my product in Jesus' name. Okay, so we have a private jet there that's 30,000. So let's go back to our VS Code and let me try to delete the private jet. Pause. Come here. So let me delete it. So I'll say I want to delete product with that ID. Request. Yes. Can you see? So now what is it telling me? It's saying You cannot delete this because you are not the owner of the product. Bagam. Now let me choose the other product that's a bicycle and let me try to delete it. Let you see. So I'll say products and then the ID of that product and I click delete. Yeah, this product has been deleted successfully. Let me try to get my list of products and I have an empty product. Of course, let me use the other private jets ID. Let me put it here. Yes, and then let me try to delete it. You see, I cannot delete that product because I'm not the owner of that product. I'm not the owner of that private jet, so I cannot delete it. So you see that this middleware we've applied here, right? Checks first. Are you even the owner of the product? See, it checks. Are you even the owner of the product that you're trying to delete? If you're not the owner, then we tell you that you cannot do this action. We don't call the next here. We just tell you that you can't do it. But if you are the rightful owner of that product, we can then call the next. So this next now is going to now allow your request that was hanging somewhere here to now, or that was hanging here to now enter here, to now enter this controller. Then the controller will now execute it. Then you can then delete that product. Does it make any sense to you guys now? Does it make sense? Nobody's saying anything. Does it make sense to you guys?
Yes, but the user will not see the product that is not his now. So why would he delete it?
Yes, yeah, he's not seeing his own product. So this is the thing. I actually restricted these products, right? The list of products you can see to only the list of products which you are the product owner of. So if I remove this, for example, right? Maybe I just put in an empty object, right? Or even if I don't put an empty object and I send the request now, I should see everybody's product, even irrespective of whose product it is. You understand? So the reason why you weren't seeing all the products was I was saying find product model where the product owner is the person that is currently logged in. And of course, what did you write there before? We said user details, REQ or user details or user ID. Remember that this user ID is coming from this check if logged in middleware. This check if logged in middleware it will check if you have an authentication token. If you have an authentication token, it will try to split it. You get. Of course, you know our authorization token would be bearer and then the token. So we are splitting by space. Then we pick that token, the token itself, which is the second value of that array, right? We pass the token itself and the secret key to unlock that or to verify that token. So if verification goes on well, the user detail will be passed to, okay, the user token, right, will be created inside the request object. So if you now say req.userdetails.user_ID, of course, you know that this contains user ID and email. So if we say req.userdetails.email, we'll get the email of the currently logged in user, right? Or the email of the user that's sending that request. Okay. If you say req.userdetails or user ID, we'll get the user ID of that current user that's sending that request. So then after doing this, we now call the next. So now, effectively, all the routes that I have that are affected by this check if logged in middleware can have access to this req.user details object. Does it make sense to you guys now? Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. All right. So this is where I'll draw the curtain for today's class, and I will see you guys in the next class. All right. So bye for now.
Thank